The conference room smells like burnt coffee and rehearsed regret. Brett Lawson sits across from me, wearing the expression of a man performing reluctant sympathy. The HR representative beside him slides a document toward me without making eye contact. Project Falcon has been classified as a failed delivery. Your role is being eliminated. My stomach drops. My name is Dana Osei. I am 38 years old and a senior program director at Crestline Data Solutions. 9 years building data systems for this company. Project Falcon was an 18-month integration program I led from the very first blueprint to final delivery. The client accepted the work 17 days ago and praised my team by name. I look at Brett. 6 weeks ago, he leaned forward, looked me in both eyes, and said, "Dana, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. I give you my word." Now he is staring at the wall behind my head. "You told me I was safe," I say quietly. He straightens his tie. Things move fast at this level. I do not cry. I do not argue. I ask for 48 hours to review the paperwork. He agrees too quickly. I walk to the lift, open my phone, and create a new folder. I name it Falcon. Then I write down every word Brett said to me 6 weeks ago before memory softens the edges. I do not go home. I drive 2 streets from the office and park in a quiet car park. The engine ticks as it cools. I sit with my laptop on the passenger seat and force myself to think clearly. 9 years at Crestline. 22 months on Project Falcon alone. I know what a genuine project failure looks like. It leaves a trail, missed milestones, formal complaints, client escalations. It does not arrive as a surprise 3 weeks after the client sends a thank you email. I search my sent messages for Heartstone Financial, the client on Project Falcon. It takes 11 seconds. An acceptance email from Kwame Asante, Deputy Chief Technology Officer at Heartstone. Dated 17 days ago. Integration delivered to full specification. Outstanding work from Dana's team. We are pleased to confirm acceptance. Outstanding. Full specification. Accepted. Project Falcon did not fail. Someone decided it had failed after it was already finished and the client had already gone home satisfied. I save the email to the Falcon folder. Then I notice something important. Brett's shared calendar is still visible to me through Standard Manager to direct access. He never revoked it. I open it and start working backwards. 3 weeks ago, a private meeting between Brett and the Chief Operations Officer. Subject, Project Falcon Delivery Assessment. I was not invited. I was not told it had taken place. 5 weeks ago, a meeting titled Operational Restructure, Succession Planning. Attendees, Brett, the COO, and someone listed only by initials, CW. 7 weeks ago, 2 full weeks before Brett told me I had nothing to worry about, a 3-hour block labeled External Consultation, Talent Strategy. No attendees. No location. Stripped of all detail. Same evening, a dinner reservation Brett forgot to mark private. Guest listed as Simone Adler. I search the name. Simone Adler. Senior Director at Vantage Talent Group. Her professional focus, placing senior data program directors in financial technology firms. A recruiter. A private dinner. A cleared calendar. Brett was not assessing external candidates for the company. He had been lining up my replacement for weeks while sitting across from me and promising I was safe. I add 8 documents to the Falcon folder. My hands are steady but my mind is moving fast. Then my phone rings. It is Femi Adisa, the senior data engineer who has worked alongside me on Project Falcon since month 2. His first words, "I need to tell you something. Please let me finish before you respond." Femi is precise and private. He does not make calls like this. 6 weeks ago, the same week Brett gave me his personal word, Femi was pulled into a meeting. Brett and a woman Femi had never seen. It was introduced as a project risk review. Brett asked Femi a detailed set of questions. Which parts of Falcon were originally my design? Which had been changed during the build phase? Whether a new project lead could reasonably argue the work needed significant rework before it could be considered complete. Femi answered truthfully. He thought it was standard governance. He said nothing to me because nothing seemed suspicious enough to flag. But thinking about it now, he said, someone was being coached to call your finished project broken. Trained in the specific technical language they would need. Using details they could only have obtained from someone who had seen the actual build. Brett had prepared someone to dismantle my work before the termination meeting ever happened. Will you write down every question he asked? I said. A pause. Yes, Femi said. That is exactly why I called. I add his account to the Falcon folder. Then I sit down to compare the official failure report, line by line, against the actual project record I still have access to. The failure report cites 3 critical problems. Failure 1, delayed delivery against contracted milestones. The milestone dates in the report come from an early draft of the schedule, one formally replaced by an approved change request in month 4. That change request is filed. Brett's own signature is on it. Failure 2, client concerns about integration stability. I pull the meeting minutes from every session cited. In every case, the concern was raised, addressed, and signed off as resolved. The failure report quotes the concerns but removes every record of resolution. Failure 3, cost overrun against approved budget. They use the original budget figure. They completely ignore the scope expansion agreed in month 9, which formally increased the budget. That approval document exists. Brett's signature and the COO's counter-signature are both on it. Every failure in this report is either invented or built by deliberately quoting only the parts of the record that look bad while hiding the parts that don't. I photograph every contradicting document and add them to the Falcon folder. Then I call Jerome Achebe, the employment attorney I have kept saved in my phone for 3 years, hoping I would never need him. I tell him I need an appointment tomorrow morning. He says bring everything. Jerome reads through the Falcon folder in complete silence for 39 minutes. I sit across from him and drink coffee I cannot taste. When he sets the folder down, he uses one word. Premeditated. He explains clearly. The failure report using superseded schedules is not an admin error. The removed client sign-off records are not an oversight. The recruiter dinner taken during the same week as Brett's personal promise is not coincidence. Each piece alone could be dismissed. Together, with Femi's account of the coaching session, they describe a coordinated plan to manufacture false grounds for dismissal while keeping the target working and trusting until the project they needed from her was done. Jerome asks one direct question. Who else knows what this project genuinely delivered? Kwame Asante at Hearthstone. My project team. Femi. And one other, Constance Obi, the independent project auditor Crestline brought in at the start of Falcon. She completed a final review at project close. Jerome asks whether her final audit report is still in the project records. I open my laptop and search. It is not there. But I submitted it to the document management system myself, 8 weeks ago. I still have the submission receipt. The report was there. Someone removed it. I do not tell anyone the audit report is missing. I check the access logs, still visible to me during my 48-hour review window, and find the deletion record. Timestamp, 4 days ago. 3 days before my termination meeting. The account used for the deletion is listed as Program Administration, a shared system account for bulk file work. I have never held access to that account. I email Constance Obi from my personal address. I explain the report appears to have been removed and ask if she holds a copy. She replies within 2 hours. She has the full report. She also has something I did not know existed. Shortly after project close, she received an unusual request from someone at Crestline, asking her to revise her quality rating downward from satisfactory to requires improvement, citing stakeholder concerns she had not documented. Constance had refused. She kept every email. Would you like the name of the person who made the request, she asks. I say yes. The name is not Brett Lawson. It is Craig Whitfield, head of HR operations. The same HR function responsible for my termination had asked the independent auditor to quietly downgrade a completed and accepted project. In writing. And the trail was still there, waiting. Jerome files a formal subject access request for my complete employment file. Crestline must legally respond within the required timeframe. While we wait, I contact Kwame Asante at Hearthstone. I explain briefly that Project Falcon has been classified internally as a failure and ask if he would provide a written statement confirming its actual delivery status. His reply arrives before I reach home, 4 sentences and a scanned signature. The final line, Project Falcon was delivered in full to the agreed specification. I am glad to confirm this in any formal setting required. Jerome adds it to the growing file. 3 days later, Brett calls from his personal mobile. Not through any official Crestline channel. His voice is warm and carefully managed. He says a settlement package is being prepared. Very fair. If I can sign the separation agreement by Friday, he will personally write me a strong reference. Personally. His own name used as the incentive. I thank him and say I will review any formal offer through my attorney. A pause stretches. You have an attorney? He says. I confirm it and end the call. I write down every word of the conversation with a timestamp before doing anything else. Jerome listens and focuses on one detail immediately. Brett called from his personal number and offered his own personal goodwill. He is acting outside any official company process. He is trying to close this before it reaches people with real authority over him, Jerome says. Then, does Crestline have a board-level whistleblower protection policy? I say yes. I helped write the data governance section 2 years ago. Then we use it, Jerome says. But first the personnel file arrives. We open it together. The performance review inside my official HR record is not the review Brett showed me 6 months ago. The ratings are lower. The strong language about my leadership has been replaced with phrases about inconsistent communication and delegation gaps. It carries the same date as the original. But the version history, which HR failed to strip, shows it was last modified 11 days ago, 3 days after Brett handed me the termination packet. They rewrote my performance review after dismissing me and slipped the new version into my file. Jerome says quietly, falsifying an employment record after issuing a termination notice becomes a legal matter, not a disciplinary one. He drafts a formal preservation notice that evening, sent simultaneously to Crestline's legal department, external auditors, and board chair. The Falcon folder now holds 47 documents. The whistleblower submission goes to the board's independent audit committee the following Thursday. 67 pages. 5 clear sections. Section 1. The timeline of Brett's verbal promise against documented recruitment activity that began 2 weeks before that promise was ever made. Section 2. The fabricated failure report alongside the source records that directly contradict each cited failure. Section 3. The deleted audit report and the written request made to downgrade it. Section 4. The retroactively altered performance review with version history metadata as evidence. Section 5. Signed statements from Kwame Asante, Femi Adisa, and Constance Obi. The submission names 2 individuals, Brett Lawson and Craig Whitfield. Copies go simultaneously to Crestline's external legal counsel and to the industry's professional governance body. I go home and wait. 4 days pass. I cook. I sleep better than I have any right to. On the morning of the 5th day, my phone rings. The caller introduces herself as Adiz Mensa, chair of Crestline's board audit committee. Her voice is measured and precise. She says she has read every one of the 67 pages. Is there anything else you have not included? She asks. I tell her there is one thing I could not confirm without formal authority. The deletion of Constance Obi's audit report was executed through the program administration shared account. But Crestline's system requires individual login credentials every time a shared account is accessed. The IT database holds a record of which named employee used that account on any given day. I had not been able to obtain that log on my own. Adiz Mensa says she will request it from IT directly under audit committee authority within the hour. The log arrives the following morning. Jerome calls me within minutes. The program administration account on the deletion date was accessed using credentials assigned specifically to Brett Lawson. Not a generic system function. Not Craig Whitfield. Brett himself had logged into the shared admin account, deleted Constance Obie's final audit report, and left his own system identification embedded in the record. He did not merely build a false story. He personally removed the evidence that would have destroyed it. Jerome says quietly, he deleted that document while the preservation notice was already active. I ask what that means in practical terms. Destruction of evidence after formal legal notice has been served, he says. That moves this well beyond an employment claim. Two things then happen on the same day, separated by 3 hours. At 11 in the morning, Craig Whitfield submits his resignation to Crestline. Personal reasons. No further detail. At 2 that same afternoon, an email arrives in my personal inbox that was never meant for me. Whitfield had used his email client's autofill feature and it pulled my external address instead of an internal contact with a similar name. He sent a recall request 40 seconds later. The recall arrived. The original email had already opened. I read it once. Then twice. Then I forwarded to Jerome without adding a single word of my own. The email is addressed to Brett. It says, they have her file. Remove the calendar entries before tomorrow morning. We cannot have the Vantage meeting showing alongside the guarantee conversation. The guarantee conversation. Not the reassurance. Not the talk. The guarantee conversation. A specific named reference that both men understood clearly and had apparently been tracking since the moment I hired an attorney. Brett had not forgotten what he said to me 6 weeks ago. He had been monitoring that sentence like a liability from the day he said it. Jerome reads the forwarded email and says one quiet sentence. He knew exactly what he was promising her when he made that guarantee. The following morning Adiz Mensa contacts me with results from the audit committee's independent calendar review. The calendar confirms the Vantage recruiter dinner, it confirms the succession planning session. And it confirms one more meeting I did not know before now. 3 weeks before my termination, Brett scheduled a meeting with Craig Whitfield and a third attendee whose name Adiz does not yet share. The title of that meeting was 2 words, narrative alignment. They had scheduled, named, and formally calendared the session at which they sat together and decided how to describe my removal to the world. They called it narrative alignment. They attended it. They left it in the calendar. That afternoon Adiz calls to tell me that Brett Lawson has been placed on immediate administrative suspension, effective from noon today. Within 24 hours I received 3 messages from people inside Crestline. Kofi Ansa, a project manager, writes to say something similar happened to a colleague 18 months ago. A senior analyst. Successful project delivery. Role eliminated shortly after. Quiet settlement. She left without a word. A member of my own project team forwards an email from 3 months ago, Brett asking them to extend a list of deliverable gaps in Falcon and relabel it as client-identified concerns. They had not complied and had not understood why he was asking. Now they understand. And a woman named Blessing Carr from Crestline's legal department sends 4 careful sentences. There is a document I should know exists. She cannot send it. But if someone with the right authority asks the right question, it will be forced into the open. Adiz Mensa says 3 words when I pass on Blessing Carr's message. I already know. The document is an internal legal advice memo produced 8 months ago by Crestline's own in-house counsel. The audit committee compels its release. I received a written summary. 8 months ago, Crestline's lawyers were asked to advise on the legal risk of eliminating a senior program director's role shortly after the completion of a major client project. The memo was clear. Significant risk of a legal claim, particularly if the employee could show the timing was designed to avoid a contractual completion bonus. The completion bonus. My contract included a bonus tied to Project Falcon, 20% of my annual salary, triggered by successful client sign-off. Kwame Asante's acceptance email had activated that bonus 17 days before my termination. By classifying Falcon as a failure, Crestline voided the payment. By ending my employment before I could formally claim it, they ensured I received nothing. Someone had read that legal warning 8 months earlier and chosen to proceed anyway, but built a failure narrative specific enough to survive scrutiny. The falsified milestones, the deleted audit, the altered review, not clumsy errors. A constructed legal defense against a bonus claim they already knew was coming. Jerome sets the total exposure figure on the table. I say 2 words, all of it. Her name is Orla Delaney. She was Brett Lawson's executive assistant for 2 years before leaving Crestline 8 months ago. She sends me a short LinkedIn message. 4 sentences. She has seen activity suggesting I am in a dispute with Crestline. She left partly because of something she witnessed. She does not know if it is relevant. She would like to speak. I call her that same afternoon. Orla tells me this. 11 weeks ago, she was in Brett's office preparing meeting materials. Brett received a phone call. He did not ask her to leave. He was often careless about what he said in her presence. She heard him say clearly into the phone, yes, she is on track to finish by month's end. Once she has delivered the project, we will not need her anymore. Have the paperwork ready. She had not known who he was discussing. She filed it away and left 2 months later without connecting it to anyone specific. Now, hearing what has happened to me, she understands exactly what she witnessed that day. Will you give a signed statement? I ask. Yes, she says. I have wanted to tell someone since the moment I heard it. I sit with that sentence after the call ends. Once she delivers the project, we will not need her anymore. He had counted down to the moment I finished while calling me irreplaceable. Brett's personal attorney sends Jerome a formal letter. 3 arguments. The verbal promise Brett made to me was a personal expression of confidence, not a contractual commitment. The failure report reflected a legitimate management assessment. Any document deletions were routine administrative work unrelated to my case. Jerome writes 1 note beside each argument. Against the first, see misdirected email, the guarantee conversation. Against the second, see falsified milestone dates, omitted client sign-offs, deleted independent audit, and coaching session account. Against the third, deletion executed after formal preservation notice was served. This is evidence destruction. Jerome's response is 2 paragraphs. The second states plainly that, given the document deletion after preservation notice, my legal team will be referring the matter to the relevant regulatory authority to assess whether criminal obstruction charges are appropriate, entirely separate from the employment claim. Brett's attorney does not reply for 4 days. Then a single sentence arrives. Our client is prepared to engage in a without prejudice mediation process at the earliest available date. Jerome calls me the morning it arrives. They blinked, he says simply. I tell him I have been ready since the night I sat in that car park and opened Brett's calendar. All I needed was enough time for the truth to finish building itself into something no one could argue with. Mediation takes place in a neutral solicitor's building. Beige walls. Stiff chairs. Water glasses nobody touches. Crestline's legal team arrive with a prepared offer. Financial compensation. A written retraction of the failure classification applied to Project Falcon. A neutral employment reference. In exchange, a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement, a mutual non-disparagement clause, and withdrawal of all formal complaints. I read it carefully. Then I place it face down on the table. There are 3 things missing from this offer that I need before I will sign anything. First, the falsified performance review must be formally corrected in my HR record with a written acknowledgement that it was altered. A copy of that acknowledgement belongs to me. Second, Crestline must contact Constance Obie in writing, formally withdraw Craig Whitfield's request to revise her audit quality rating, and issue a direct written apology to her. Third, I will not sign any agreement that prevents me from responding honestly if I am ever directly asked whether I was dismissed from Crestline. Their counsel requests a recess. It lasts 50 minutes. When they return, all 3 conditions appear in the revised document. Jerome gives me 1 small nod. I pick up the pen. Before I sign I speak once more. Project Falcon was a success. I want that written as the opening paragraph. They add it. I sign. The corrected HR record arrives 10 days after mediation concludes. Signed by Crestline's interim head of people operations, Craig Whitfield's replacement. It states that the performance review previously held in my employment file was found to contain amendments made after the original review date. The original review, rated exceeds expectations across all performance categories, has been reinstated as the permanent formal record. Crestline apologizes for the error. Error. I note the word. I do not challenge it. The record is accurate. That is what matters. Brett Lawson's employment at Crestline ends the same week. The internal message says he has chosen to pursue other opportunities. Within a fortnight, his LinkedIn will remove Crestline from his history. Within a month, the profile goes private. The audit committee issues an internal findings summary to all senior staff. The failure classification applied to Project Falcon was not supported by the evidence. It has been reversed. Project Falcon is officially reclassified as a successful delivery in the company's records. Kwame Asante sees the reversal notice and emails me the same day. Subject line, told you so. I laugh properly for the first time in 6 weeks. I call Femi and read it to him. He laughs too. Then he says he should have called me sooner. I tell him, you called when you understood. That was enough. 3 weeks after mediation, Adiz Mensah contacts me. She says the investigation uncovered governance problems at Crestline that go much further than Brett and Craig Whitfield. The audit committee has approved 3 structural changes, an independent review process for all project delivery classifications, a formal separation between HR and performance record management during active disputes, and a mandatory escalation pathway for any employee who receives a verbal assurance from a manager about their employment security. Then she asks whether I would consider a role at Crestline. Not my previous role. Something new, head of governance and program integrity, reporting directly to the audit committee, with independent authority to investigate delivery disputes and flag conflicts of interest in people management. I ask for 1 week. I call Femi. I call my sister. I call Jerome, who says the question is whether I trust the institution enough to fix it from the inside, or whether I trust myself enough to build something entirely new on the outside. On the 7th day, I call Adiz back with 3 conditions of my own before I accept. She agrees to all 3 before I finish describing the 3rd. I was hoping you would push back, she says. It tells me you will actually do this job properly. 6 weeks into my new role, Kofi Ansa arrives at my office with the case I had already suspected was coming. Yvonne Petrie had been a senior analyst at Crestline. 18 months ago, she completed a client migration project, which the client praised in writing. 2 weeks after final delivery, her project was classified as a partial failure. Her performance reviews were retroactively altered. She accepted a settlement, signed a non-disclosure agreement, and left quietly. She told almost no one. Her NDA contains a standard clause. It cannot prevent disclosure to a regulatory authority or within a formally sanctioned internal investigation. My new role gives me exactly that authority. I contact Yvonne through Kofi. She is cautious. 18 months of silence became a way of moving through the world. But she listens carefully. Then she provides a full formal statement. The investigation takes 4 weeks. Its findings track my own case closely enough to constitute a clear, documented pattern, one that predates Brett Lawson by at least 2 full promotion cycles at Crestline. This methodology was either passed down or built into something structural long before he arrived. I present the findings to the audit committee and recommend a full 5-year review of all project delivery reclassifications across the company. Adiz approves the review within 24 hours. 3 months into my role, an email arrives from Kwame Asante at Heartstone Financial. Heartstone has renewed its partnership with Crestline for a 3-year extension. The announcement states that Project Falcon's data integration infrastructure was the specific foundation of their confidence in continuing the relationship. Contract value, £6.1 million. The press release credits the project team by name. My name is listed first. I read it twice at my desk. Then I forward it to Femi, then to my sister. Then I save it to the Falcon folder. The folder now holds 112 documents, evidence assembled in car parks and at a kitchen table at 3 in the morning. Emails were sent from a personal account, while the office thought I was quietly disappearing. Timestamped files were built one careful entry at a time. I compressed the folder. I encrypt it. I archive it somewhere only I can reach it. Not because I think I will need it again. Because I am Dana Osei and I keep my records. That same week, 3 members of my original project team received formal written recognition from Crestline's new leadership. Femi receives a promotion to lead systems architect. None of it would have happened if I had signed the first settlement document on day 2. I think about that sometimes. How close I came to signing it. I spend evenings building a policy I wish had existed 9 months ago. It governs how Crestline handles verbal assurances from managers to employees during any period of company change. Any assurance about employment security, project classification, or role continuity must be confirmed in writing within 48 hours of being made. That written confirmation becomes part of the employee's permanent record. It is binding. I draft every sentence carefully. I think about the people who would have needed this. Yvonne Petrie, who trusted completely and left carrying something she could not talk about. Femi, who witnessed something wrong and sat with it for weeks not knowing what to do. Myself, sitting in a conference room while a false termination letter was slid across a polished table. I title it simply, The Assurance Policy. I send the completed draft to Adiz Mensa. Her reply arrives the same evening. One sentence, this goes company-wide immediately. I print a copy. I read it beginning to end one more time. Then I sit at my desk and allow myself to feel the weight of what this is. Not just a document. A formal protection embedded in every employment contract for every person who joins this company going forward. That, I think quietly, is the piece that will outlast everything else I have ever built here. 6 months after the termination meeting, a junior analyst appears at my office door. Her name is Adan Bello. She is 26, new to Crestline, and she is carrying the careful look of someone holding something they do not know what to do with. She heard something from her manager that morning. Something vague about the direction of her team and a coming reorganization. He told her not to worry about it. She has a feeling she cannot name. She reminds me of myself. Come in, I say. Sit down. I do not tell her everything at once. I ask one question first. Did your manager put anything in writing? She shakes her head. I open my laptop and show her the assurance policy. 3 short paragraphs. Adiz Mensa's signature at the bottom. Effective across every level of the company. If any manager makes you a verbal promise about your employment, I say, you now have the formal right to request written confirmation within 48 hours. That confirmation becomes part of your permanent record. That is not a favor. It is policy. She reads it. Then reads it again. Does it actually work? She asks. I think about the Falcon folder. 112 documents. Every night that built what she is reading right now. It exists because it needed to, I say. That is how you know. She starts to stand and then stops. Can I ask how you know all of this? She says. I give her the short version. My manager once told me I had absolutely nothing to worry about. He looked me in both eyes and said he gave me his personal word. She is very still. I believed him. I went back to work with my head down. I delivered the biggest project of my career on time and to full specification. The client accepted it. Praised my team. Then 6 weeks later, my manager sat across a table and called the project a failure and handed me a termination letter. She does not speak. What did you do? She finally says. I opened a folder on my phone and started filling it, one document at a time. Every email, every timestamp, every calendar entry, every piece of the real story saved somewhere they could not reach. I pause. I should have recorded that original conversation, I say. But I didn't. So I recorded everything that came after. And in the end the folder held 112 documents. Every single one told the truth. She stands. She says thank you in a way that means it. I watch her walk down the corridor. Justice did not arrive with drama or a loud public moment. It arrived one document at a time, in a folder named after the project they tried to use to bury me. 6 months ago I sat in a car park, opened a calendar entry, and found a recruiter dinner hidden on a Tuesday night that a man forgot to mark private because he never believed I would look. That was where the truth began. The Falcon folder is encrypted and archived now. 112 documents. The preserved record of everything they built against me and everything I built in return. My corrected performance review is in my official file. Project Falcon is formally recorded as a successful delivery. Yvonne Petrie's case is under active review. The assurance policy lives in every new Crestline employment contract. Femi is lead systems architect. Adan Bello knows her rights. I am Dana Osei. I kept my records. I trusted the documents and waited for the truth to become undeniable. That is all I did. If this story stayed with you, drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from today. If you know someone who was told not to worry and felt something was wrong anyway, share this with them right now. Subscribe every week. We bring you stories like this one, and we always tell them all the way to the end.